Okay, let's get started. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our webinar where you can learn a lot more about the Office of Accessibility Services, MindFit, in our Autism Support Program. My name is Lisa Hanselman and I'm the director of the Mountaineer Parents Club. Just so you know, here's the contact info for the Mountaineer Parents Club as we go through not just tonight, but the rest of this time until your students are here on campus. If you need anything, you can always reach out to the Mountaineer Parents Club. You can join us on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group for the official families of WVU students, and we have a Facebook page for the official families of the WVU class of 2028. Those are great ways to stay connected to what we're doing here. And now we have some wonderful folks who are joining us this evening. And so we are going to start off and let you meet the team.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Hennigan. I'm the Assistant Director of Accessibility Accommodations within the Office of Accessibility Services here at WVU.
Hello, my name is Jason Capcalla. I'm the Assistant Director of Captioning and Interpreting for the Office of Accessibility Services.
And I'm Lisa McGee. It does say Stenger, but I'm McGee now. I'm the Assistant Director of our Testing Center and Assistive Technology.
I'm Dr. Dan Long. I'm the Director of the Office of Accessibility Services, and I oversee the MindFit program and the Autism Support Program.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Lytle, and I am the Program Director of the Autism Support Program here at WVU.
Okay, before we get started with this presentation, I do just want to say that if you need any tech support, please reach out through the chat. We have our own tech support here tonight, and they will help you as best they can. After the presentation, we'll be happy to take any and all of your questions, but we do ask that you hold the questions till the end so we can answer them all at one time, and we will be answering them out loud so everyone can hear what questions that we have. So for now, we will turn it over to our guests.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you all for joining this evening. I just wanted to take a few moments to touch base about the accommodation process and the overview of how that works here at WVU. On the accessibilityservices.wvu.edu website, there is a link on the right-hand side at the top that would enable the student to register for services with our office. During the time that you're able to register, documentation can also be provided at the same time. The next step, once you've applied, you're assigned to an accessibility specialist, one of our team members, and then you go ahead and meet with them either via Zoom or by phone to have your appointment, to go over your intake information, review possibly any documentation that you have that you provided in advance, and to talk about what accommodation needs you feel you might need while you're a student here at WVU. The next part of the process would be making the semester request, which is requesting your authorized academic accommodations. Our accessibility specialists then send out the accommodation letters in the form of a faculty notification that goes to each student and also to each faculty member. Once those letters are sent out, then students and faculty have conversation about how the accommodations are going to be implemented in each of the classes. So that's really just a brief overview of the process. It's a very straightforward registration process, and certainly we're happy at any time to answer calls, set up meetings, do anything if you have questions about services and how we can assist getting started here at WVU.
Great, and I'll take a few minutes here just to talk about one of our areas of accommodation, which is our real-time transcribing and sign language interpreting accommodation for students who are deaf and hard of hearing. So one in 25 college students identifies as deaf or hard of hearing. And when it comes to accommodating those students at most schools rely on third-party vendors and automated captioning programs. But at WVU, we're home to the premier transcribing and interpreting team in higher education. We were established in 2003, and we are the second program nationwide to provide in-house remote transcription. And we're the only in-house transcribing and interpreting team in the state of West Virginia. And so most people know what interpreting is, or they've had some experience seeing a sign language interpreter at an event or on television, but you may not know about transcribing. At WVU, we employ 8 full-time staff transcribers, and they've all been rigorously trained by the company Typewell, who is the leading name in the game when it comes to transcribing, and one of the oldest transcribing software companies. And we provide what's called meaning for meaning transcription. If you've ever watched a live transcript on, say, television, you've turned on your captioning for a live event, such as a sporting event, something like that, then you may be familiar with it, and you may know that often it is not very good. We in our office often like to say that students should not have to settle for verbatim transcribing. What we mean by that is there are certain situations like a class or a meeting where providing an exact word for word transcript of every single thing that was uttered in that class would be very inconvenient. It would be very long. It would be filled with a lot of unnecessary repetitions, ums, ers, other kinds of verbalizations and disfluencies that really get in the way of understanding. There are things that we filter out in real time when we're listening, but can be much harder to parse when you're reading it on a page. And so we create what's called a meaning for meaning transcript. It still contains all of the content. It's written in full English sentences. We use standard English grammar. It contains all of the terminology, all of the vocabulary in the class, all of the specialized jargon. It retains the tone of what was said and the formality of what was said, and it even includes cues for ambient noises, such as if an alarm went off or something like that, and body language cues. And our transcribers are trained to do this in real time at a speed of about 250 words per minute, and students are then able to read along with this using any device that has an internet browser on it. It can be your laptop, it can be an iPad or tablet. And we provide this service in somewhere between 60 and 90 classes per year in over 40 different subjects. We also handle all of our closed captioning of videos in-house, and we caption between 10,000 and 25,000 minutes of video per year. Our transcribers are all trained to adhere to the Association of Transcribers and Speech-to-Text Providers Code of Professional Conduct. And so everything they do is, and everything that they hear in transcribing classes remain confidential. We can move to the next slide. We also, of course, have sign language interpreting for students who are deaf. And that's perhaps one of the things I should have said in the previous slide is, right, the reason we have transcribing is that not every person who identifies as deaf or hard of hearing knows sign language. However, some of them do. And for those individuals, we also provide sign language interpreting. We have 2 full-time and 1 part-time sign language interpreter here in the Office of Accessibility Services, and they all maintain either a 3-3 level on the VQAS or national certification. They provide services both on-site and remotely for all of WVU's campuses, including Potomac State and WVU Tech and Kaiser. And they maintain their qualifications and adhere to the RID, Code of Professional Conduct, which is the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf. And these are very popular accommodations among students who are deaf and hard of hearing, and they are oftentimes students, the very first time they're ever seeing these accommodations are when they come to WVU, particularly when it comes to transcribing. And we're proud to say that we have a 98% student satisfaction rating. And you're good to move to the next slide, I'm sorry.
Small technical problem, but we'll carry on in one moment.
All right, so I'm going to tell you guys just a little bit about our Office of Accessibility Services Testing Center, and then we also handle a number of assistive technology softwares and assistive technology devices as well. Next slide, please. So the Office of Accessibility Services does have a testing center on campus. This allows our students who are registered with authorized testing accommodations to go to a familiar location and be able to take their exams in the same location consistently for all of their exams. They're also able to use the restroom in our facility. They're able to grab a drink. They're able to stand up and kind of move around if those are accommodation needs as well. Things that they may not have been able to do in a normal classroom setting. Our testing center is open 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. We are closed university holidays. And it's located in the downtown campus library. So on the downtown campus, we're on the basement level there. Students who are registered with our office do not have to use the testing center, but it is an option for them. We also oversee a number of assistive technology programs. Kurzweil 3000 is a text-to-speech software that we make available to a number of students with authorized accommodations for that. We also have something called Glean. Glean is a note-taking software. It's available to anybody that wants to purchase it, but our students get access to it if they have a note-taking accommodation through our office. We also work to assist students in getting their alternative format materials created. So if a student, for instance, has a need for an audiobook or Braille, we can work with them to get proof of purchase. We do need that. So a receipt of some sort, and then we will work with the publishers directly to provide them those materials in the format that they needed. We can do it for textbooks. We can do it for journal articles. We also do it for materials that are from the library. So students are not limited to just their textbooks. Next slide.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here with you this evening. My name is Dr. Dan Long, and my colleague is Ashley Stewart. She's the program director of MindFit. Unfortunately, she's unable to make it this evening, so I promised her I would do my worst impersonation of Ashley, and so here I am. The MindFit program is actually a program I started in about 2009. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I worked at the counseling center for many years. And what we were seeing in 2009 were a lot of students struggling with attention and other cognitive issues. And the initial aim of MindFit was to try to identify some non-medication based alternatives to medication that could help to train up people's attention and facets of their cognitive functioning and so on. And so that's actually how MindFit started. We were specializing in these really niche areas, very interesting and innovative area of brain-based interventions to help strengthen attention and cognitive functioning. As time went on, we started seeing more and more students who clearly would have benefited from some sort of enhanced academic support, meaning support over and above the standard tutoring that's often available, on campus. And so in about 2014, this area, the academic area of MindFit started. It's been very successful since that time. The way to think about it again is it's not merely content-based support like tutoring, but these are academic coaches who are also trying to help students with capacity building, developing their executive functions, their attention, their learning, not just giving them the fish, but kind of learning how to fish, how to be more autonomous and successful learners in college. And a lot of the interventions that we use are specifically tailored to population of students who are struggling with attention and other learning issues. And so as you can see here, there are a couple of tiers of service that we offer. One is a more discrete time-limited intervention called an academic skill consultation, usually lasts about 3 to 4 sessions. During that time, we are trying to distill the essential things that we think will help students become successful in college. And so that can be very effective for many students. There are some students who feel they would benefit from a more enhanced level of support. And so that's their tier 2, the enhanced academic coaching. And as you can see, there are a few different levels to that students can participate in. There's a package that's 3 to 4 hours, 5 to 6 hours, 7 to 8 hours. Really comes down to a combination of what we might recommend to students and what they feel would benefit them most. So that's the academic area. And then the next area, you go ahead and flip slide, there we go. This is kind of going back to the brain-based interventions. And this is the cognitive enhancement area of MindFit, which is there are an array of services that, again, they're designed to try to help bolster a person's attention, executive functioning, facets of their cognitive performance. So we use things like cognitive training and neurofeedback. And if you're not familiar with them, these approaches, they're really quite interesting. There's a lot out there, and I think increasingly so as we are in 2024 and moving ahead. If folks are interested in learning more about cognitive training and neurofeedback, they can reach out to me. And if you're interested in more of the academic coaching end, you can reach out directly to Ashley Stewart. We look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the WVU Autism Support Program. Similar to MindFit, we are a fee-for-service program, so we are not an accommodation, but we focus on 5 main areas: academics, executive functioning skills, healthy social connections, independent living skills, and transitioning. Some of the supports that we offer our students are advocacy and referral services, weekly one-on-one check-ins with staff, and monthly workshops focused on our 5 domains. We also provide students with individualized weekly assignment trackers, bi-weekly goal sessions, and action plans. They also have access to the ASP Lounge and ASP Sensory Room located in Stewart Hall. We do one-to-one peer mentoring. We also host a weekly peer group where students in our program and our peer mentors come together and just organically socialize in a safe and welcoming space. We do a monthly social event or outing. Some that we've done previously, like in this picture, is going to a women's basketball game, the Wow Factory, which is a local art studio, on Eagle's Wings, which is equine therapy, just other things that we can do during their collegiate journey to experience more things. We do have an LLC for first-year students launching this fall in Lincoln Hall. We do an RA and RLS training with all of our RAs and residence life specialists across campus. And then we also do monthly check-ins with them to make sure everything's good on the independent living front within the dorms. To transition to college, we offer students a summer transition session in our program. They receive early move-in, and then we do kind of a get ready for college, how to read a syllabi, welcome week 101. Students get individually paired with their peer mentor and walk their schedule, figure out which transportation works best for them. And then we're also launching a transition to college portion where we work with our students on resume building, workplace skills workshops. So yeah, if you want to learn more about our office and the MindFit and ASP program, you can visit our website at accessibilityservices.wvu.edu. I know tech support has linked it in this chat. You can follow us on our social media channels at Access to WVU, that's for the Office of Accessibility Services, at WVU ASP, which is for the Autism Support Program, and at MindFit WVU for the MindFit program.
Okay, so that's our presentation. And now we know that you all have some questions. So if you wouldn't mind just dropping those in the chat, be happy to read those out loud so we can get you all the answers that you need. And as you are putting those questions in the chat, we'll be here waiting. I will kick it off with a question of my own, so we can give you all time to type. So, as a parent visiting campus, are there accommodations that would be provided for someone who might need them?
Can you repeat that question again?
Sure. So basically, is a parent eligible for any accommodations when they were be visiting campus?
That's a good question. We handle really primarily our purview is dealing with student accommodations. However, there's another office on campus that handles public accommodations or things like what you're suggesting if a parent were to come to campus and they needed accommodations. And so they could absolutely reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect them to the appropriate folks and ensure that their accommodation needs are met while they're here.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's start our first question. Can you talk a little bit more about the fee for MindFit Tier 2 services?
Yeah, the Tier 2 services, I believe are 20, and I apologize that I'm a little uncertain about this because we just have undergone some recent changes, and I wish Ashley were here to answer some of these questions. But I believe it's on our website. I believe it's $2,400 for that package, and I just want to also mention that for many of our students, they would be eligible with the West Virginia Department of Rehabilitation Services. That's a fantastic program that does a lot for students with disabilities. The mission of the West Virginia Department of Rehabilitation Services is to help West Virginians in particular, but we've actually had luck over the past year with folks from different states being eligible for services through DRS. And DRS offers a wide array of services to help support a person and their disability needs while they're essentially trying to become employed, right? So, getting through graduation and into employment. But one of the things that they do, and I don't know that they would love me advertising this, but I'm going to share it with you all. They also support so paying for certain costs, and I don't want to get in trouble for over quoting here. But one of the things that they will routinely pay for are MindFit services and autism support program services. So about 35% of folks who are in MindFit, enrolled in the MindFit program, are fully paid for by the Department of Rehab Services. And then Stephanie, for your program, it's much higher.
Yeah, almost 85% of my students are fully funded through the Department of Rehabilitation Services. And you can find their website as well, wvdrs.gov, and sign up to do an intake meeting with them. Or you can contact our office and we can send a referral form for your student to them so that they will contact you.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, once a student is actually assigned to an accessibility specialist, one of our team members, your student can complete the release of information. We can send the referral directly, and then they contact the student to schedule the meetings.
And just to make it very convenient for you, we have someone from DRS who operates physically out of her office 3 days a week during the academic year. So we try to reduce as many barriers and create a straight line for people to get support for DRS. Our goal is to one day get to a place where we're able to reduce or even eliminate costs for it entirely. However, these programs are revenue self-sustaining, so the revenues are used to support the staff and student coaches and so on. But the Department of Rehab Services has really been a boon for many of our students.
Yep. And one more area, just sometimes we have students that may have had 504 or IEP plans while in school. And, if testing or updated documentation might be something that's necessary, we can work with the students to get those referrals made. The awesome thing about that is that there's current assessment information and the fees, there are no fees associated with that. So that is covered by DRS directly. So that's just another area that if a student perhaps hasn't been tested since maybe first grade, second, third grade, something like that, but could benefit from current assessments. That's always something that we're really happy to be able to make those connections for students coming in.
Thank you. All right, next question. We're going to go back to you, Dr. Long. Should a student start MindFit immediately or wait and see how they do the first few weeks? And how would they set up that first appointment?
I assume that the question is probably oriented more to the academic enhancement area of MindFit, but if not, I'll try to answer both. I think so maybe the pithiest way to put this is MindFit has an enrollment period after which no new folks could be added for the academic year. The reason for that is, the reason we don't have like a rolling enrollment is we have to select and train the peer coaches who are going to be paired with each student. So each student is assigned to, they work with maybe 1 or 2 coaches throughout a semester. And we're really selective about who we pair, and then they have to undergo a certain amount of training and so on, just to be here, just to participate in MindFit as an academic coach. And that's, by the way, that's in addition to all the other meetings they'll have with full-time staff in MindFit. So for that reason, we would say if you think that you're interested, we'd really encourage you to reach out to Ashley Stewart and just start a dialogue, have a conversation, and see whether you think it's something that may be of benefit, and probably would be good to consider, sooner than later if you think there's interest in that, or that's going to be a benefit to your son or daughter. Definitely want to get them having those conversations early. If it's for cognitive enhancement, that's anytime someone wants to come in, they can schedule a consultation with me.
So, Dr. Long, we believe our son would definitely benefit from these services. Is this in any way covered by health insurance or just totally self-pay?
Are we talking, again, I'm not sure if we're referring to the cognitive enhancement services now. I'm going to assume the cognitive enhancement services, of course, health insurance wouldn't cover academic coaching. So I assume that this is about cognitive enhancement. No, it's unlikely. We don't use health insurance here. Maybe that's something that we could look to down the road, but it's not something that we currently have in place. And many insurance agencies, unfortunately, will not reimburse for cognitive enhancement services, not currently. Some will, but it's fewer and far between. That said, the cost is significantly reduced. So for 20 sessions, give or take, you're talking only a few $100s. And again, DRS will pay for those services if that's of benefit.
Okay, so for Dr. Long and Stephanie, is MindFit only for students with autism, or for any student, perhaps one who had an IEP in high school for a learning disability in math?
Yeah, MindFit is for, it's not exclusively for folks on the spectrum. It's really for anybody who believes that they would benefit from enhanced support. And so most often the kinds of students we're seeing may have a history of learning issues, reading, writing, math. Maybe they have ADHD, a cognitive disorder, those kinds of things. And we do also have some students who are on the autism spectrum who participate in MindFit as well.
Okay, next question. Our son began working with DRS last year and has been told he qualifies for certain accommodations. When can he expect to receive a letter outlining the accommodations he has been approved for this fall?
So I'm not sure if the student that you're speaking of, if they've actually registered with the Office of Accessibility Services yet. Obviously, there are two separate processes. My recommendation, if they're not registered, would be to go ahead and complete that registration and then upload documentation that you've received from the DRS counselor. And then you'd want to schedule your intake appointment with your accessibility specialist. At that meeting, students review accommodation information with their specialist, can review the documentation and talk about, what kinds of accommodations perhaps have been helpful in the past, and, see what kinds of things might be beneficial for them here as students at WVU.
Yeah, just to add to that, so DRS really has, they don't have any direct connection with our office. So as Susan said, the most important thing is that students register with our office right away. And if they are also receiving services from DRS, then we'll help coordinate that.
Okay, so here's a mom who would love a referral for our son to DRS. They're coming from Maryland. How would they go about that?
I recommend, again, just to go ahead and register with our office, get connected with a team member so we can work to do that direct connection.
Thank you. So what's the deadline by which you need to sign up for Tier 1 and Tier 2 for the upcoming academic year?
I am so sorry. I don't know exactly when Ashley has set the deadline, but I do know that she's going to be taking them later into this year than previously. So I would say even if you're not ready to sign up right now, I would definitely reach out to Ashley so you can just express your interest. And she'll keep in touch with you, and she can also, of course, answer any questions you have about deadlines for that.
Sorry there. Okay, so my son started WVU last year. We think he'll benefit from the MindFit program. Can you tell me more about how the coaches are trained, and are other undergrads responsible for the primary services of cognitive enhancement?
So to that latter point, no undergrads are involved in the provision of cognitive enhancement services. That's myself, and I will, about every year I'll have an intern who's a doctoral or master's student in a graduate program, either in counseling or psychology, clinical psychology, social work, or a related social health field. So no undergrads are there. We do employ undergrads for the academic enhancement area. And that's because we've had great success with essentially a peer support model. So we have two full-time staff members that oversee the program. That's Ashley Stewart and Aaron Huffman. And they meet with all the students who are enrolled in the program. And they're very involved in day-to-day stuff. They're kind of overseeing progress reports and interactions between peer and the student. But the delivery from day to day, the actual coaching is handled by these peer coaches, which has been, again, really successful. If you're kind of wondering how successful it's been, our average GPA has been a 3.1, and we have first year retention rates that are higher than, actually higher than WVU's first year retention rate, also have a higher 6-year graduation rate as well. So we're doing really quite well in this model. And so the way that they're trained is, first of all, there's a couple of criteria that students have to meet in order to be selected. They have to, in order to be paired with a student, let's say a student has, biology and they want content support or some enhanced support for biology classes, then we're going to be specifically selecting, if we don't already have them, we'll be selecting students who have done really quite well, a B or higher in those courses. And then they're going to undergo a few days training. It's like 3 days solid of training. And the training it hits all the benchmarks for CRLA certification. CRLA stands for College Reading and Learning Association. And it's a really good standard to have in place to ensure that, you know, the training you're providing is high quality and it kind of meets the gold standard of what you would hope that these folks can provide to students. And then after the 3 days, then there's additional trainings that go on throughout the year so that we can keep enhancing their skills. We want everybody to be CRLA level 1 by the first year. And then if they continue to come back, we will train them all the way up to the highest level of CRLA certification. We also sometimes have graduate students as well. Again, it really depends on what the needs are for the student who's enrolling in the program.
Thank you. So are the approved accommodations sent to professors and guidance given to them on the implementation of those accommodations?
So the accommodations are discussed with students when they meet with their accessibility specialist. Part of those meetings, in addition to just going over what's been authorized, we discuss, you know, having conversation and interactions with faculty members. And essentially, it's, you know, talking to the faculty about how each individual accommodation is going to be implemented in each of the classes. Students do make a semester request at the beginning of every semester to request their academic accommodations. We send out reminders about, you know, making sure that you remember to request accommodations in advance of the start of the semester. We also send out reminders those first couple weeks of the semester. So we kind of hit in terms of messaging. We'll do that multiple times before and during the semester.
Thank you. Okay, next question. My son struggles with executive function and anxiety related to ADHD. Would MindFit cognitive enhancements benefit him?
My recommendation on that, honestly, would be if you have specific questions, I would reach out to Ashley Stewart, certainly, and just touch base and share a little bit of information and see what she recommends. And then certainly would recommend if your student has not been registered with the office, you know, certainly feel free to go ahead and have them do that as well.
Okay, next question. This one was sent to me privately, so y'all might not have seen this in the chat, but how involved can I be in my students' accommodation process?
So essentially with parental involvement in the accommodation process, each student would actually have to sign an authorization for release of information and, you know, indicate who would be permitted to speak with our office. So that's going to be up to each student. And in terms of regular conversations, parents can join students with intake appointments and those kinds of things if you want to kind of team those together. But in terms of specific accommodation related requests from the student, you know, we do need to have conversations with the student present. So certainly I would just say that, you know, if your student wishes for you to be involved in the process, that's great. But just know that the student does have to be part of that conversation. So we couldn't have an intake meeting or a conversation just because we have a release on file. We certainly need to have the student involved as part of the process.
Okay, keep throwing those questions in the chat, folks. We are happy to take a lot more questions. I'm gonna go ahead and throw one out myself. So if a student feels that their accommodations are not being met in the classroom, what would their next step be?
Really, any questions about accommodation implementation, I would direct them to their assigned accessibility specialist. If they're not sure who they're working with or they don't remember, certainly they can email our access to at mail.wvu.edu or give a call to the office at 304-293-6700. The biggest thing I would recommend, if there's ever a question about an accommodation implementation, we would like to know about it really immediately. So I would say even within 24 hours. So that can be by phone if it's during the day. But obviously I know that the students are here and they're busy and trying to balance all the things as students. So they can also send an email if it's after hours, and then certainly a team member, will respond. So I would just say any questions at all. That's one of the biggest things every semester is if I get a call after finals, we really like to know if there's a concern so we can address those in real time and figure out, what's going on and what are the appropriate steps to take there.
Okay, so we'll wait a few minutes. We need some more questions, folks. So please ask us anything here. It's a great opportunity to get questions answered by the experts right here in real time. So while we're waiting for a question to pop up, Stephanie, could you tell us a little bit more about your LLC for this fall semester?
Yeah, so right now it's going to be set up in Lincoln Hall. And so students will be rooming with other students in the autism support program. We will be utilizing their kitchen space to maybe work on some independent living skills. They have laundry there as well, which is nice. So we can kind of assist students with that. The RAs will be trained that are servicing the students on our floor. So they'll kind of be the ones really checking in on daily hygiene and is their room, organization wise, is that staying clean? Is it not? Self-isolating themselves? Do they need any additional support? So we're there to kind of support the RAs and supporting them and supporting our students and using that space to help. So yeah, that's what we've got launching this fall. I'll also say we are launching the sensory room at the Mountaineer as well, and that'll be open to all WU students. There'll be a space to sign up on the door of the Mountaineer so that they can, if they would like to utilize that space, they don't have to be enrolled in our program. They'll just have to register through us, and we will give them card access to the Mountaineer sensory room. So,
is it okay if I say that I saw the sensory room this week and I loved it?
thank
It was
you.
amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're very excited about it and just trying to make campus more neurodiverse affirming and having these spaces for, all of our students with any type of sensory need to have those be met especially at our bigger places on campus. So we're very excited about it.
The room was wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Can a student use accommodations on an as-needed basis, maybe per assignment?
So what I would say just overall in terms of any academic accommodation, our team reviews documentation and review for consideration for reasonable accommodation. So as far as particulars, because every student is different and everything is determined on a case-by-case basis, I can't really say of any particular accommodation, but certainly as part of the interactive process and review of documentation, we're happy to take a look at what documentation is available.
Okay, so also I think, can a student use their accommodations maybe on a few tests, but not all of them?
So, what I would say for that, I mean, it's certainly up to each individual student, how they wish to utilize them. We would rather students have the accommodations in place and feel like they didn't need them than to be on the other side of it and feel like they needed something that they did not have. Certainly that's going to be up to the discretion of each student. But certainly our team authorizes the accommodations based upon the documentation that we receive, and the faculty notification letters, just outline what has been authorized. So if a student chooses to kind of deviate from what's been authorized, then they would, really need to communicate that with their instructor.
Yeah, and one of the things I would just add to that too is that so each semester a student is going to select which accommodations they want to use and which courses they're taking. So sometimes we'll see that a lot. In my area, I may have a student who only wishes to use transcribing in a large classroom. When it's small, face to face, very close, they feel like they do just fine. But then in a larger classroom, they find that the distance between them and the speaker, or perhaps the shape of the room, something like that, creates issues that make it more difficult for them to hear. And so they'll request that. We have some students who will request interpreting for only their labs and then transcribing for their lecture courses and things like that. And so students do have a level of control over. I mean, that's one of the things that kind of makes the college a little bit different, is that students are in control of their accommodation. As far as on an per assignment or per exam, as Susan mentioned, that'd be worked out, with faculty as part of the discussion of implementing accommodations. But I can say, there are instances, for instance, again, when I'm thinking about my group, a student may say, I don't need transcribing when we break into group work. I just need it, when we're in the big lecture or something like that. And certainly we take our cues from the students and what their needs are. So.
Thank you. So is there a specific form to give to our student's psychologist who has assessed her and recommended accommodations?
So we actually do have, thank you for that question, on our website, there's information regarding accommodations. And if you drop down there on accommodations, you'll see under the academic tab, there's licensed professional questionnaire information. So the provider can certainly take a look at that. We ask them to complete those forms in the entirety and sign off on those. They can provide the letters to the students directly, and they can be uploaded to the student portal, or the providers can fax those to our office as well. And the fax number is 304-293-3861.
Thank you. So do you set goals and or benchmarks or keep data like was done in high school?
So
Go
go ahead, Dan.
Do you mean like an IEP kind of thing? If so, no, it's a bit different in college. High school's under IDEA, and then college is under the ADA, and it's a whole set of different expectations and things which are supported through our office. So, but to answer your question, no, there aren't necessarily goals or benchmarks from an accommodation standpoint. It's simply, what are the functional limitations of the person's disability, how are they documented, and then what accommodations can be granted to them that will help them overcome barriers to access.
Okay. All right. Once again, we're at our last question. I bet there's a couple more out there, so we'll give you a chance to drop some more questions into the chat.
And Lisa, I have one, if I could jump in just real quick. I know sometimes we do get questions about IEP or 504 plans, and if those transfer over to WVU. So just kind of piggybacking off what Dr. Long just said. If a student has copies of a prior 504 IEP, we're happy to take a look at those, but it doesn't carry over. In order for the student to receive accommodations at WVU, they do need to be a student who's registered with our office and has provided documentation. So we're happy to look at the documentation from prior what they received, And, in the event that another assessment might be necessary to help us kind of look at current level of functioning and functional limitations, if we're working to say, maybe helping with DRS to see about getting testing completed, sometimes there's enough information in a 504 IEP that we might be able to authorize some temporary accommodations. So that's kind of why it's just really important that we're happy to review any documentation for consideration once a student's registered. And just real quick, we do ask that the students complete the applications. When they're doing that, they're actually giving permission for our team to review their medical documentation. So I would just encourage that if your student's interested, please go ahead and have them register so they can go ahead and provide their permission for us to review that information that comes in.
And how long should a student expect it to take for the entire process, from the application until they're approved and can receive services?
So from the time of application, a student is typically assigned within the same business day or the following, depending on when that comes in. And then they schedule with their assigned team member. They can usually be seen within about 2 to 3 days. So it really just depends in terms of how long does it take. It's a pretty straightforward process. It would truly depend upon, what information is needed for us to review. Are we having a meeting with a student who hasn't had accommodations before and may not have information for us to review? So I wouldn't want to say exactly how long that might take, but I'll say just the process overall is, very straightforward. A student receives their accessibility specialist contact information as soon as they're assigned, and they're actually able to go and log on to schedule a meeting with their specialist. And then, those meetings they can request to have with their team member can occur either via Zoom or by telephone. So I can't give an exact, but, again, the sooner the better. And, the more information that we have at the beginning, perhaps the faster the process can move. And just in terms of accommodations, I know we've talked a lot about academic accommodations. I just want to, let you know that if students have housing accommodation needs, perhaps, or campus access accommodations or transportation related accommodations, again, the sooner the better the students connected to us, so that we can kind of determine how we can assist to have things in place sooner rather than later.
I'd just like to reinforce one particular aspect of what Susan said there. So it's about 2 to 3 days to meet with a specialist if all the documentation necessary is provided. So just again, what Susan was saying, I think is really important. If we have someone who's coming in, like she used in her example, who's never received accommodations, that may also mean they've never undergone, let's say, psychological assessment or a medical evaluation by a provider. And so that type of documentation is required under the law in order to provide an accommodation. So typically the lag time, if it goes beyond 3 days, normally is because someone either doesn't have that documentation. That's usually the big reason. Or something has been hung up in the process of acquiring that information. But if a person already has that and it's fairly recent documentation, then it really can just be a matter of days before. It'll be 3 days when they see someone, but then in terms of when the accommodation is authorized, again, it really depends on, does the person have all the requisite documentation in hand?
And just wanted to add just another thought here. Students will be getting their class schedules, and even if they meet with a team member and they get their accommodations authorized, I know there's anxiety or just the interest to go ahead and let's get these requests sent in and let's get this moving right now. We do want to make sure that, students are in fact registered for classes when they request their accommodations. So I would just say that just remember that we do send out reminders to students in advance of the start of the semester. And I wouldn't want a request to go in for a student where there's no classes actually attached to it. So that's just my only thing. I know it's really exciting and everybody's trying to cover all of the bases, but I promise you, once the accommodations have been authorized, making the requests and getting those authorizations sent out happens very quickly. So just wanted to just put that out there just as something to share.
Thank you. So related to this, would a student have time during new student orientation to have their appointment with their accessibility specialist? This family's coming on June 28th. And as someone who works at NSO, I will say that families have time after 3 o'clock that they could fit this in. So would that work for your office?
What I would recommend, go ahead and just give a call to the office at 304-293-6700. What I have found in the past, we used to do intake meetings on the days of new student orientation. What we found was that there's so much incredible information that is, reviewed and, seeing campus and doing all those kinds of things that sometimes it created some confusion or, it was so far removed from just the orientation to the start of the semester that those meetings weren't always as clear as we had hoped they might be. So, we're happy to chat, but, we can also set up a Zoom meeting directly with anybody, before or after NSO. So if you wanted to say meet with a specialist prior to your visit to campus, you could just stop by our table and meet a team member that's there at the information fair. So that might be something just to consider. I just know there's a lot during those days, and Lisa, I know that with tours and all the information, it can be a lot. So that meeting essentially really could occur in advance of coming to campus.
Thank you. So how recent?
Also, sorry, I was just gonna say, also, the specialists are not working in the office, they work remotely. So even if you were to stop by our office, you probably wouldn't physically be able to meet with your specialist there. You could do the phone call there or meet with them on Zoom there. But yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
we
yeah,
can meet for in-person appointments as needed. We have many of our specialists work at a remote capacity. But I do see the next question about how recent does the documentation need to be? And 2 years is great. When I made that comment earlier, it's sometimes we'll have testing that is given to us when the student was evaluated. Maybe they were like 6 years old, and now they're 18, 19 years old, and they're coming to WVU. And that documentation is way outdated. We benefit from having adult norm testing, or close to, and within the past couple of years is ideal. And in fact, if a person's been evaluated 2 years, they couldn't validly be retested within until after 2 years. So yeah, about 2 years ago should be sufficient. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, well, that's our last question. We'll give you all another second to see if there's any other questions out there. Since you have us here now, that would be best. Oh, we have a thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that we're very lucky to have everyone here today in one place to answer all of your questions. Well, it looks like we're done with our questions today. All right, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you out there who have joined us this evening. We, again, are recording this session. It'll be available on the Mountaineer Parents Club website, and we'll make sure that it's available a lot of other places as well. If you have further questions, please reach out to the Office of Accessibility Services. They're happy to help you in any way. And if you aren't sure who you need to talk to on this group or how to get to them, you can always reach out to the Mountaineer Parents Club, and we'll be happy to send the information over to them. We've worked very well with most everyone on here, and so we're happy to continue doing that and get all your information out to them. So with that, we will say goodnight and see you all in the fall. Thanks.